Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is Austin here, bringing you a TVP series from the GESL. That's the GIGABYTE ESPORTS LAN Invitational, which was an event held in the United States with a prize pool of $11,000 around a month ago, from June 15th to the 17th. It was on the same weekend as DreamHack, but it did have a lot of foreign players, and among them is, well, DeMusliM is European, but I meant foreigner is Korean, and MVP TAiLS, who is our red Protoss player spawning at the bottom left of Cloud Kingdom, is one such player. So, I mean, it's a medium-sized LAN with that kind of a prize pool, but it's very interesting that they were able to get over such a high amount of Korean pros. We had Golden, Sweep, Monster, just to name a few, who actually placed pretty highly in that tournament. So anyways, this is from Pool Play, and it is a best-of-3 series with TAiLS pitted up against EG's DeMusliM, the famous English player, spawning at the top right as the blue Terran. So I haven't watched much of either of these players personally, but I do like the matchup of TVP, and I wanted to move on from that TVT that you guys saw in the last game just because it took me so long to cast that. It didn't actually take me long to cast it. It just took a while for me to get every video out and actually sit down and do it. Now, with my physical training regimen, I've set up a schedule of casting where I get back from my morning training and I cast, and then I get back from my afternoon training and I cast. I just want to get a good amount of videos out and ensure that you guys are getting a really good viewing experience while I'm just becoming better and better as a commentator faster. So TAiLS is just going with this nonchalant no wall off, because whoever does that as a Protoss player in TVP. And he's now opened up with a regularly timed assimilator. Now going to transfer over 3 probes. I'm not sure why he'd put it on this one, actually. He's only put 2 probes on it, but usually I tend to go here just for transfer distance, and there's that 3rd probe going now from the building a cybernetics core. So that's an intelligence time saver from TAiLS. Now, it looks like DeMusliM is considering going for a fast expand. Yes, he is. So 1 Rax expand, probably going to drop a bunker right in the middle here and just load it up to ensure he's able to hold off any early aggression. And personally, my own reaction to seeing this, or what I think should be logical, is that the Protoss is going to know that their opponent is trying to macro up, and they should drop down and expand of their own. Just because the Terran player, it will be quite a bit of time before the Terran player can hit with a strong timing, and TAiLS sees this. I don't know if he actually scouted, but no, he has not scouted, so he doesn't actually see the fast expand, but he's fast expanding himself. So I mean, as soon as he scouts his opponent's fast CC, he's gonna think, well, I made the right move. That's very high level, not gonna say guesswork, but just predictive play, just anticipating what your opponent's gonna do based on their past matchups and just the metagame in general. So TAiLS is going to grab his warp gate at a fairly regular time, a little bit delayed due to his expansion. And now DeMusliM's is going to finish a little bit ahead, but both players are fairly even in harvesters. TAiLS actually 4 ahead, but as I've touched upon before, with chrono boosts used properly, you can jump a few probes ahead of your opponent in terms of harvester count. Now TAiLS going to be getting a robotics facility, always a very intelligent choice in this matchup. The Immortal can fend off against any sort of a siege tank push and just break tank lines if necessary. You'll always see the Colossus in the late game, or Colossus or High Templar, but it seems as though TAiLS will be more inclined to go the Colossus route just as a result of his tech and Warp Prisms. Warp Prisms are a very useful unit if you get speed against Protoss and against Terran, like what's happened quite a few times is just dropping in the main and force fielding the ramp and then dealing some serious damage. That's especially useful against Terran and Zerg opponents, because Protoss can just warp in units from all their gates and kind of save the race, but Terran have to just rely on the Raxes that are in their main. Same thing for Zerg, their hatcheries. So TAiLS now expanded, same for DeMusliM. There's not too much pressure going on just yet. Let's see exactly what our red Protoss players scouted. Only the CC, so he has no idea of what kind of tech his opponent's up to, but I guess he can just kind of figure that he's going for a 2 base multi-racks with M&M and probably medevacs later on. He's going to be able to see all this with his observer, and now TAiLS controlling one of the Zelnaga towers. I believe he was controlling another for a little while, bringing that zealot back for whatever reason. Or maybe it was an observer drifting over this. I do not recall off by hand. So, TAiLS now dropping 2 gases at his natural, and let us check the harvester count. Still 6 ahead for the Protoss. Even though he expanded a little bit later than his opponent, he's still been able to keep that lead. I mean, you do have to... Mules are Terran's balancing factor, but just a statement to point out. Or actually a fact to point out. I'm not wording things right now. Please give me a break. I've been out of school for over a month now. See, I can't even count. Not even a month. Like 3 weeks. So now, this factory is going down in the main of DeMusliM while he picks off the neutral supply depot at the natural ramp, which is featured on the MLG edition of Cloud Kingdom. So this is actually MLG Cloud Kingdom. I forgot to point that out. So he does have the factory starport, probably going to lift this off and scout with it, building the reactor on the factory to save himself time so he can lift it off and switch with the starport. He's also getting his 1 weapons, while TAiLS has opted to go for the faster Twilight Council with charge, and now now transitioning into 2 forges. Sometimes I'll think of a big word I want to use in the context, and then I'll forget the word, and it'll take me a little while. So he's going to be getting a quick 1-1 with charge to support it. And that will put him on a very strong footing. He hasn't actually made an immortal yet. He has a pretty nicely positioned observer, just idly taking note of all of DeMuslim's production power. Now he is actually getting the Templar Archives, so he's just going to go for a fast Charge Rod Archon with probably Storms thrown in there. He's actually just negated to use this robotics facility as a whole, with the exception of observers. So now DeMusliM is going to use this factory to scout, but I think the tech switch from TAiLS is intelligent, but dropping down that robotics facility and then only using it for observers is definitely some money lost. And now it looks like DeMusliM is trying to push out with this heavy marine force. He's got a few marauders in there. That's a total of 4 with just his first 2 medevacs out. So I'm going to just call it an MMM, but mostly marines. He's just going to stim 1 in and sacrifice this poor young lad. He didn't enlist expecting this. And he's actually going to survive, so that's a bonus. He enlisted, it was a sacrifice, and he survived so far. So now this allows DeMusliM to pick off the pylon on the high ground and deny power on 2 gates. Now TAiLS warping in a bunch of units, some pretty nice force fields, just able to trap a lot of Terran units in between them. But DeMusliM is going to make his slow, gradual advance, and Archon is merging. And now the merging is complete, as the Archon says. I don't know what it's doing. It was kind of falling over twice. I don't know. That's a little glitchy. So TAiLS did boost production on those 2 gates. He's now going to lose this Archon. DeMusliM stutter stepping very well, and he will actually give himself an 8 harvester lead. That will probably grow with time. He's stutter stepping well, but charge kind of negates that. And TAiLS has held it off fairly well. He did lose a total of 8 workers, or 9. It depends on whether or not the scout was killed. But he's still alive. He's still alive and kicking, and that's really what matters. He didn't lose a base. All he lost was a pylon and a power on 2 gates, and then just a fair amount of units. But TAiLS was able to trap some of his forces with the force fields, and is now just producing 2 Archons. So he's not even gonna bother going into storm play, which is intelligent. At this point in the mid game, because he's not going to have the time to get enough energy and actually get storm researched. So now DeMusliM going to pick off a few stray zealots as they escape, and we'll pick off this pylon on the high ground as well. So TAiLS has a good pylon spread, but thanks to the medevacs, DeMuslim's able to just eliminate them and potentially even supply block him. So now here is TAiLS getting dropped here, trying to defend that with some charge lots. They are doing their job quite well. The vision on the high ground is going to allow DeMusliM to pick off some of those zealots, but ultimately that was not the most intelligent choice for DeMusliM. I mean, the charge lots were there, they were anticipating it, and they were successful in their mission to hold it off. Now, DeMusliM continues to reinforce. He is getting his 2-2, and just pure bile. which is more prevalent in TvP as opposed to mech. Mech is a lot harder to control if you're facing Immortals and Colossi. There's an attempted 2 force fields there from TAiLS, but they don't actually trap many units. And now DeMusliM is just going to be able to keep this proxy factory. And it looks as though TAiLS is just about to finish his 2-2. This will be faster than DeMuslim's, because DeMusliM left 2-1, but not 2-2 at the same time. So now DeMusliM is picking off Zealot after Zealot, because Concussive Shells has finished. I don't think he had it before when I covered the engage over here. But our blue Terran player just keeps the heat on. And he has now established a third, and he's actually 3 workers behind, but that is not too good for TAiLS because he's oversaturated with that many workers off of 2 bases. So TAiLS just does not seem to have enough actual forces to completely eradicate this Marine Marauder force. But if we look, he does have a generally oversaturated main, and his natural isn't looking too great either. He really needs to establish a third. So I don't know if he's trying to maybe throw down a proxy pylon or something. And sorry about that, guys. That was just an unforeseen interruption. Now let's get back into our game. TAiLS is getting 3-3, so he's definitely invested in upgrades. He has this really heavy Archon force, but it seems as though DeMuslim's just outproducing him. He's just kept the aggression on from the very start of this game. He was able to hit TAiLS when he was vulnerable and deny that third. Now TAiLS is dropping it, but it's going to take a while to finish, take a while for him to actually be the transfer probes, and actually all of those units were cancelled because the pylon warping them in was destroyed. So now DeMuslim's still stutter stepping, but he's just forced TAiLS to really sit back on his 2 bases and try his best to defend. DeMusliM is slightly behind in upgrades, I will say that. He's about halfway. He's just finishing his 2 armor and about a quarter done his 3 weapons. He's now going to force a cancel on that pylon as well. And I honestly don't think TAiLS is going to be able to come out on top in this one. Team MVP's Protoss player is just not looking too poised, just because DeMusliM has gotten so far ahead. He's 5 harvesters behind, but he's got about an average of 20 workers on each of his 3 bases. And now DeMuslim's forces are just going to hit TAiLS probes as the GG has been called. Now finally our last observer has left the game, and that is it. Replay complete. I hope you guys enjoyed this cast. Maybe it was a nice change of scenery, just going for a mid-sized LAN as opposed to some of the more notable tournaments or some of the smaller weekly tournaments. So I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys in game number 2. This is Austin signing off. Thanks for watching.